4, 3.
Welcome to Her TV. I'm your host, Brooklyn, and joining me today is award-winning educator and scholar, Dr. Kushin, professor of the Communication and New Media with Shepherd University. Dr. Kushin also works with the Stubblefield Institute for Political Communication. Dr. Kushin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, how you feeling today? Feeling pretty good?
Feeling pretty good.
Yeah, ready for this?
Warmer weather. I'm enjoying the warmer weather.
Well, for our first question, you are up for Professor of the Year. How does it feel?
It feels amazing. It was a huge honor just to be nominated. So the way that it works is I was nominated here by the university, and then I had to apply, and then I was picked for finalists. So there are 5 total finalists across the state. Mm-hmm. And so just to have made it to be a finalist has been just a huge honor for me. I got to go down to Charleston and be interviewed. And so once I became a finalist, I got to go down to Charleston and be interviewed. And so now I will find out if I win here in a few weeks.
Yeah? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You must be like on the edge of your seat.
Yeah. I'm nervous. I'm excited. Win or lose, it's just been an honor. It's just been really cool. And there's so many great educators here at Shepherd University, and just to be able to represent them means a lot to me.
Absolutely. So you already kind of described the process of being like considered for like Professor of the Year, but like was there anything like you said you have to go apply, and then like you're chosen out of like, do you know how many people you're chosen out of?
I don't know. The way that it worked was I was contacted and said, we would like to nominate you to represent Shepherd. Would you be willing to do it? There's a lengthy application process. So there are a number of questions that you have to answer and kind of go back through, my resume and all the things I've done over my time here. This is the 13th year that I've been here. So I was trying to go back through like all of my documents and annual evaluations and essentially put together a narrative, right, of like what I've done and my experience here and answer those questions. And then I had to get some, like letters of support from people. And then I submitted that. And then, I don't know, it was a couple months or so later, I heard that I was chosen as a finalist. So once you hear that you're a finalist, you go down to Charleston and you're interviewed there in person. And so part of that process then is preparing for that interview and, kind of trying to think, well, what might they ask me about and how can I help tell the story that I've told, in the document? Like, how can I help bring that to life? So I went down there and was interviewed there and then came back. And then, as I said, the next step forward is going down, I believe it's the night of April 17th. There is an event in Charleston, at which point I'll be told whether or not I won. So I won't know. It'll be
wow.
it'll be like a real
big grand
awards.
Reveal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's going to be really cool. Like really, really cool.
Yeah.
So you've recently put out a book, which I got right here. Beware of the Smart Kids. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So this is a book about a teenager in high school in a fictional town in Appalachia. And he is kind of a troublemaker, and he has these kind of 2 best friends, and the 3 of them are kind of getting into trouble. And all he wants is just to enjoy the summer before his senior year of high school. But he gets into trouble one night because him and his 2 best friends kind of like pranked the home of a man. And that man is known as Death Row Barno.
No.
Yeah, so Death Row Barno is kind of a mysterious figure, and he has been in prison for 25 years. And there are a lot of rumors in the town. Why did he go to prison? What's the real story? So everybody is kind of saying their side of the story. And there's a rumor that he may have killed a couple people. Yes. So what happens is that Nolan and his friends, who they call themselves the Midnight Warlords, they prank his house and they get in trouble. And Nolan ends up having to do community service, basically, at his home, at the home of Mr. Barno. And so from there, the story kind of breaks out into Nolan trying to figure out what really happened to Mr. Barno. Why did he go to prison? Is he who everyone says he is? And it kind of develops that Nolan gets sort of into the inner circle, so to speak, of Mr. Barno's life. And then the town, the world around him see things quite differently. And it's a kind of a discovery process of Nolan himself, but really what became of Mr. Barno and why is he who he is and what's the reality.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. See, I've gone through the book a little bit, and like I just want to say, I love it. Like it's
Thank you.
really, really good. And the way that in the book you talk about like nicknames and like they call themselves like the Midnight Warriors,
Warlords, yeah.
Warlords, it really reminded me of like my high school experience. We gave everything nicknames. We had like this path that we take to like the community pool, and we called it the Void.
Okay.
Like it just really reminded me of like high school.
Okay.
So how does it feel seeing your book in like the Scarborough Library, or Four Seasons, or like just out?
I guess you'd say it's a dream come true, which I suppose maybe is a cliche to say, but I have a young daughter, and so like when I take her places and if she sees it there, she's like, wow, that's my dad, which is kind of obviously very rewarding to me, but it makes me think back to when I was a kid and, I wanted to write stories and things like that. And to kind of imagine, one day would I ever actually write and publish a novel and then be able to see that out in public in places.
Yeah, and you're doing book signings, right?
Yeah, I've done some book signings. I've talked at a couple high schools. I'm doing an event this weekend. When the book came out, we did a launch here in town. And so all of those experiences have been extremely rewarding and gratifying.
Absolutely. Where did you get the inspiration for this book?
So I taught a class, which I'm teaching again this upcoming semester. It's a seminar course, so it's a COM 402 course, and it's called Happiness, Media versus Reality. I created that class because there's been a lot of trends and things in media lately where people have become more open about mental health. And particularly with the COVID pandemic, I noticed that a lot of people, young people in particular it seemed, but a lot of people seem to be really struggling and wondering about life and happiness and all of these things. So like kind of seeing macro trends in society and then seeing it as a professor, and then kind of getting to an age in my own life where you start to think about like, okay, I'm a parent now, I'm getting older, like what is this all that we're chasing and what is this all that we're doing, and what does it all kind of boil down to? Well, I think for a lot of people it boils down to like, what is it that's going to actually bring happiness into my life? What is it that's going to make me feel satisfied? So that's why I created that class. And then out of that class, there were a handful of kind of like lessons that we talked about. And I noticed that students seemed really engaged with the material and the ideas. And as a professor, I can obviously sit and talk and give lectures and things, but I don't think that helps reach people. People have a natural interest and desire for story. They have a natural need to try to understand the world through story. I mean, we're a storytelling species, right? Like story is embedded in culture and how we understand things. So from that, I thought, okay, to be able to actually make these ideas come to life, I need a story. And so I need a character, who goes through the process of discovering these. So that's kind of where the inspiration of it came from. It was like, how do you take these ideas that I think more people, myself included, need to be reminded of,
Right.
and pull them into something that people can get engrossed in?
Okay. Wow. Moving on, you took a sabbatical to write the book. So we didn't get to see much of that process. Can you walk me to what the process looked like of writing the physical book?
Yeah, sure. So I created a Google document on my on my computer, and I outlined the entire book.
Mm-hmm.
So I just used the table of content feature, with headers and things. And so I put together essentially the the plot of the story. So I started just with your basic like arcs of a story, and then I built it out from there into sections, and then I was able to outline, how do you say, like different scenes and like main points of things that had to happen. So that way I was able to write it in a non-linear fashion, because once I had the outline, I could jump into different scenes and build them out more. So I could start to write like dialogue or things like that. In addition to that, I created character sketches for all of the main characters.
Okay, so like you know what they look like.
Yeah,
Like,
this is kind of before like the AI image generations. I wish I had had that, because I could have just, but I just kind of like Googled photos until I found something that kind of looked like, right, what I wanted. So I might put together a couple different photos and say like, this character kind of in my mind looks like this. It didn't necessarily end up looking like that, like in the story, how I might have described them, but like they personified that. So I had those two components together, and then every morning I just kind of actually, just got down to work and just started trying to write. And if whether I got a page or a paragraph or several pages, it's just kind of like one thing at a time. But I had the benefit of being able to go back and look at those characters and even add more information to them. So, for example, let's say there was a character and I wanted them to speak in a unique way. So I would just write down like words that they might use or phrases that they might say, that kind of thing, and built it out that way.
Absolutely. If I can ask like more of a question that I'm wondering, while reading the book, I saw a lot of like music references and stuff like that. So like you going through the process, like you filled that in, like what is the significance there? Like, is this something that like you like was big to you and like you growing up?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think when you're young, like music, I mean, it is still now at my age, like music is everything. Like some of my best memories were like going to concerts, right? Or just listening to music, like when I would run or whatever, right? So like there's like the soundtrack of your youth in a way. And you tie all those memories together. So one memory I have I had a friend who had an older sister that was really into like, what was popular at the time was like ska, like Real Big Fish,
Yes.
right? So all that kind of stuff. So I remember all of us like getting in her car and her driving us to Washington, D.C. to go to the 9:30 Club to watch Real Big Fish play, and just how much like went into that, like getting the tickets and like playing all the songs and in the car and all of that stuff. So it was like this. It wasn't just the concert. It was everything that was built around it, and how many other stories I have like that, right? So to me, I felt like I couldn't write a story that was honest about being a teenager that didn't have music as like the centerpiece of it. So the whole goal of trying to write that story is I wanted someone, when they were reading it, to say, this doesn't sound like some, person that's not a teenager, who's, I'm not gonna say how old I am, but, significantly older than a teenager, right? Writing this. I wanted it to sound literally like a teenager is talking. And I've read a lot of books that try to do that and they don't sound that. I don't know if I accomplished that, but that's what I tried to do. So that's why music plays such an important role. And then I built a Spotify playlist for it. And then I would listen to
very
that.
teenager-esque.
Yes, yeah. So then I would listen to them, like get in the mood of it as I was writing it.
Well, I'm not that much older than a teenager, though I'm no longer a teenager. But I will say that like reading the music references really does. That's how I, as a teen, would compartmentalize my experiences. Right. It was always through music. What song matched this vibe of the day or this like experience? So it definitely translated, at least to me.
Cool.
So you put out We're Smart Kids, but this isn't the first book that you've published. You published, Teach Social Media, a plan for creating a course with your students for love. How did that process change between, releasing that book and then moving on to We're the Smart Kids?
Sure. So the first book, Teach Social Media, is a book that's aimed at educators that teach college or high school, and they're teaching like creating a class, or they're just teaching as part of a class about how to use social media for strategic purposes, like on behalf of an organization, like a business or something. So that book was created because I started a blog probably in 2013 where I was just kind of throwing up ideas, and somewhat started as just a way for me to like put down on paper, so to speak, like my thought process about things. So I started publishing blog posts like, here's what I did in my class, or like, here's an assignment I'm going to do, and this is what worked, and this is what didn't work. And then over time, that built an audience, and people started sharing it and commenting or emailing me or what have you. And I realized that I had all of this material, but like any blog, it's just kind of ordered chronologically. I mean, I had tags and tried to build folders and things like menus, but there wasn't like something comprehensive. So I went to a conference in Washington, D.C., and a colleague said to me, like, where's your book? Or when is your book coming out? And I thought, like, there is no book. Like, this is it. This is just a blog.
Yeah.
So that kind of put the idea in my mind. So I then started going through the class that I teach, and then going through the blog posts and realizing there's a lot here, but it needs a lot of work to like refine it into a step-by-step process. So what that book became was literally like week to week what I was doing in my class, and like explaining it all in detail. So that was a really different writing process because it was like collecting all the information I have, filling in a lot of holes and trying to organize it. But I had a pretty clear like timeline, like, you know, a semester is about 15 weeks. Mm-hmm. So that's how I wrote that book and why I wrote that book. And then kind of became like, if you came to my website, you could see, look, if you want all of this information organized step by step, like you can get it here, but it's still almost all of it is just available on the blog in some capacity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We were told that your book just won an award. How's it feel?
It feels really, really good. So Beware the Smart Kids I just received notice in the mail that it is the co-winner of the 2025 Patterson Prize for Books for Young People in a particular age category, which is grades 7 through 12. And so I submitted to that just a few months ago, and when I got the letter in the mail, I was like, what is this? Who's this from? And I opened it, and it said, congratulations. And I probably jumped in the air, shook it in the air, and my wife was like, what? So it felt very amazing. I guess in a way it's sort of validating in the sense that somebody kind of says, hey, there's merit in this story and in the lessons of it and in the characters of this, and that they picked it out of all of the submissions for that age category. It just means the world to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, like when I saw it on like the page cover, because like your book came out, like I heard about last semester, and I was like, wow, whoa, I've like been behind the times. Like I gotta start reading this now. Like, it was like crazy. So, what's next?
Well, there's a couple of projects in the works, and then there's some maybes. Okay. So I recently teamed up with WSHC, the radio station here on campus, and we've been doing a podcast. And so we have a couple more episodes that we're looking to get out, hopefully this semester and things. So that's kind of an ongoing project right now. I am considering a second novel that I've been working on, but it's kind of stuck at the moment. And so I have a former student who said that they would read it and give me feedback on it. So I'm working on that, but it's kind of going a little bit slower than this book because it's just a very different story. It's
very different. So not the Beware the Smart Kids Part 2.
No, although I was asked to write that by a few people of sort of like the main character older now. like
Okay.
kind of.
So your fans are wanting more.
It appears so, yeah. But I'm not quite. I feel like that story has to stand by itself.
Sure.
But maybe I don't know. Maybe we'll come back to it. But for now, it feels like it kind of needs to sit. So yeah, the second story takes place in the year 1999, which I may or may not have been in high school then. And it's a dual perspective story right now.
Ooh.
So takes place at a boarding school, and there's a student who, I'm going to keep it very vague because I don't know how much the story is going to change.
Yeah.
But she goes out on an adventure looking for what she thinks is what she's supposed to be doing.
Female protagonist. Okay.
And she is going to, man, I'm really not giving too much away here.
It's okay.
But,
you can stop there. You can stop there.
so
it's okay.
she's going to have to discover a lot of things about what happens when you time travel. So she's going to.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so she's going to be pulled into kind of a time travel situation, and then there is a guy, and the guy is, he has to kind of figure out how to grow beyond where he is in that year 1999. So she's going to kind of travel in one direction, and he's going to kind of maybe move in a different direction. I know that's kind of cryptic, but it's really in the works right now.
It's going to get people to be like, hey, excited for it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What are the maybes that you're talking about? What are the hopes?
In terms of, okay, so the maybe was the book. Like, is this book ever going to kind of come together? Because it's taken a lot longer than I thought, and I've rewritten parts, and I'm just having a hard time kind of committing to, like, as the story goes on, right, it becomes more narrow, right? Like, when you start, it's just, anything's possible. But as people make decisions and characters say and do things, it's becoming more and more narrow. And so we're getting kind of like, okay, you've made these commitments to this. The road is becoming more focused. Yeah. And so I'm wrestling with maybe making some of those commitments for the characters.
Gotcha. And hopefully for the what's next, maybe a break. A break would be nice.
Yeah. Looking forward to summer.
You're doing a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
Where can we find you online?
Sure.
Plug yourself as much as you can.
Okay. So in terms of social media, just at MJ Kushin, Kushin. My website, when I mentioned all the stuff about teaching social media and things, is mattkushin.com.
Hear that? mattkushin.com.
Kushin. And then just my books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, and Goodreads is a great place for people that read it and review it. And then the book itself, this book in particular, Beware the Smart Kids, is available in local bookstores like Four Seasons and things like that.
Yeah, I personally got this from the library,
yes.
So you can check it out, but not this one because I have it.
Yes,
so.
Yeah, it's in the local libraries too, the public libraries.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been so great talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Beware the Smart Kids, like we said, available now. And for Her TV, I'm Brooklyn, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.